that, but it just feels to me, if you, as a builder, are building a wall and you just miss out the bit where it's all tied together, at what level are you aware as a professional of what you're doing, or is it because it's subcontracted down so far, the gap between actually laying the brick and what you're building is even lost?
I'm not quite following. Sorry?
Paul, would you like to?
So from my perspective, that I think we've got to be very careful not just to point the finger of blame here at the bricklayer who's at the kind of cold face, if you like. Obviously there are issues there if they are deliberately cutting corners, but I think we have to look at the wider context, the wider culture, that the wider system that they are operating in. From my perspective, I have a particular focus on the kind of people issues rather than the technical issues, which my colleagues to the other side might be better placed to advise on. From my perspective, there are four main people issues. First of all, the level of training that the tradesperson receives initially, which is generally the apprenticeship. Second of all, I think we have to look then at the levels of continuous professional development. Many bricklayers will pass their apprenticeship and could go through a whole career almost without receiving any technical training on bricklaying. I'm sure they'll receive plenty of health and safety specific training, but there is no requirement for them post completion of the apprenticeship to do any continuous professional development whatsoever. So I think that's an issue. Thirdly, I think we have to look at the levels of independent supervision and scrutiny of their work, and I think Professor Coles explained that better than perhaps I could. But lastly, it's the way in which the tradespeople are engaged with, and perhaps the employment contract or the labour-only subcontract, or people operating on a self-employed basis, and allied to that you have the way in which they are paid and remunerated. And again, Professor Cole described the circumstances whereby bricklayers are often paid by the amount of bricks that they lay rather than the quality of their work. Now, to my mind, if we create a situation where we give very little in the way of continuous professional development, create a perverse incentive to pay bricklayers to lay bricks rather than quality, and then we have a very lackadaisical level of supervision, I don't think we should be surprised if that cocktail combines to create the difficulties that have been seen in this particular report.
Okay. I mean, to be clear, I wasn't pointing the blame at individual bricklayers,
sure,
because I think I'm interested in the culture, in what kind of pressures there are on somebody just to get through that, and I think there's maybe needs more understanding of that. Specifically in your evidence, you talked about the dilution of the skills agenda around apprenticeships,
sure,
and that actual current qualifications aren't given the kind of guarantees, I suppose, of the autonomy of the tradesperson you might have had in the past. I wonder if you want to say something about that, because I think that's something we might want to explore further. Even while we're providing apprenticeships, they're not creating the skills that we could then have confidence in to resist some of perhaps the broader pressures that are on an individual tradesperson when they're doing their job.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to speak about the apprenticeship qualifications. I think that will be the main focus of my contribution to the committee today. I think first of all, in terms of the technical aspects of the bricklaying apprenticeship, we have asked Professor Cole to come and meet with industry representatives and college lecturers to identify any technical shortcomings in the curriculum, if you like, of the bricklaying apprenticeship. And thankfully, Professor Cole's coming over to speak with us next week to kickstart that process. The concerns that we raised in our evidence are in relation to the renewal of the SVQ qualification, SVQ level 3 qualification that a craft apprentice would receive, including bricklayers. Unfortunately, we have sustained a significant level of frustration over the last 8 or 9 months in terms of working with our partners, firstly at the Scottish Qualifications Authority, SQA, and secondly with our Sector Skills Council, CITB, who have been ineffective in representing the industry's views. So if I could take SQA initially, if you would allow. Last year, they unilaterally made a decision that the skills test was to be removed from the SVQ qualification. As many people may know, the skills test is the end test, if you like, that a craft apprentice must pass in order to be certificated. They then made a decision to unilaterally introduce portfolios of evidence into the SVQ qualifications without any prior discussion or dialogue with the industry. They also terminated a successful joint awarding arrangement with the industry. So all SVQ craft certificates carried an industry logo as well. And that was terminated without any justification still being given to the industry for those actions or any indication on how the relationship's going to move forward from here. And lastly, they are now looking at introducing SVQ Level 2 qualifications in what are sometimes referred to as the biblical crafts, which again includes bricklaying. There has been no consultation with the industry in relation to the introduction of those Level 2 qualifications. The body that I represent, SBTC, is a combination of employer representatives, trade unions and employers directly, and they very much see the introduction of Level 2 qualifications as a dilution of the skill base in the biblical crafts. So the SVQ Level 3 qualifications are broad-based. Candidates would learn every aspect of bricklaying, for example, or carpentry and joinery, or painting and decorating. Level 2 qualifications have a much more narrow focus and may concentrate on one or two aspects of each of those crafts. So there's a concern in the industry that we lose what's normally referred to as labour market elasticity and the ability from candidates to move from one job to another.
We'll be writing to SQA to ask them to respond to the comments that you've made.
Yeah, I would really appreciate if you did. We've really struggled with SQA over the last 8 or 9 months. They seem to be reluctant to listen to the industry, and again, it's a collaborative voice that we're speaking with. It's trade unions and employers and trade federations. Okay. I think allied to that, we have sustained difficulties with our Sector Skills Council, CITB, who have, in my view, not properly represented the views of industry. So without wanting to get too far into the technical aspects of the qualification, we managed to overturn SQA's decision to reject the practice of skills testing, which has been successful in Scotland now for 30 years. It took us 6 months to be able to do that. But the Sector Skills Council then wrote an assessment strategy, which is a document outlining the processes to undertake skills testing. And the way that document has been written, it would essentially allow colleges to appoint their own skills test assessor, perhaps to mark their own homework in a way, rather than having an independent level of oversight from industry, whereby skills test assessors are appointed from industry independently by SBTC and then allocated.
Maybe, Mr. Mitchell, you could write to us with sort of the detail of this, and then we could take that up with both those bodies, because it does sound like an issue.
I would certainly like to do that, and I'm more than happy to do that. If I could finish just very briefly by saying the arrangements for skills testing are now such that they would undercut the collectively bargained terms of the of apprentices. So construction apprentices in Scotland are all protected by collectively bargained arrangements. The details of the skills testing would undercut that. They would also undercut the time served period of apprenticeship, and they would also allow candidates to get the SVQ Level 3 qualification out with apprenticeship. So you could simply complete a portfolio and then be coached to pass the skills test, and you could be on a building site working on a school sometime soon. And I think we'd all seek to avoid that process. The latest update that we have is the industry, again collectively, federations, trade unions, employers, have written to SQA to say that we do not wish for the revised craft qualification SVQs to be accredited. We've written to the Modern Apprenticeship Group to say that we do not believe that the revised Modern Apprenticeship framework and the biblical crafts should be accredited. And we've written to CITB to express our concerns in the way that the Sector Skills Council is behaving. That letter is signed by employers who recruit or currently train up to 1,000 apprentices per year. So we really are in a concerning situation at the moment that from 1st of September onwards there may not be an SVQ qualification or a modern apprenticeship framework for the candidates in the biblical crafts to actually be trained in.
Okay, thanks very much for that. Joanne's
Yeah,
got another question.
just to say, I mean, I think it would be worthwhile speaking to construction unions around this issue as well, because there must be a question about how that then impacts their members in terms of their confidence to take on these questions in the actual on-site. But I suppose what I would be interested in, and maybe it's not for now, but for, you know, to reflect on, is there's very specific issues that you're talking about right now about training, but presumably a lot of the people who are on site have been trained over a longer period of time. And is there a general dilution of skills training over a longer period of time that may have led to this position? And it's not something you can answer now. It might be some quite interesting to look at, you know, having moved from what would have been regarded very high quality craft apprenticeships. Is there, for not understandable reasons, changes to that? What are those changes? What the impact of them have been?
Sure, I can give perhaps a short answer to that question. The craft apprenticeships in Scotland are still, the candidates still achieve an SVQ level 3 apprenticeship in Scotland. In comparison, south of the border, typically it's an SVQ level, or an NVQ level 2 qualification. In Scotland we have fixed 4-year term apprenticeships. That's not customary south of the border. We have standard terms and conditions for all of the apprenticeships. That's not customary south of the border. We have a final skills test in Scotland. Again, England are maybe introducing that with trailblazing apprenticeships south of the border at the moment. So construction apprenticeships are not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, and I think this report has highlighted some areas where we need to improve the technical content of the curriculum. But certainly when I speak to my counterparts south of the border, they are often envious of the apprenticeship arrangements that we have here in Scotland. They are internationally recognised and sought after, and my concern is that the developments from SQA and CITB are going to undermine that objective.
Thank you very much.
Thank